What if everything you've ever tried to force, every plan, every strategy, every sleepless night spent chasing answers, has been backward? What if the shift you're so desperately seeking doesn't start with effort, but with surrender? What if the life you desire already exists, not in the future, but in another version of you, patiently waiting for your frequency to align? And what if the doorway to that version opens every single night? Night is not when life stops. It's when the visible world fades and the invisible world becomes audible, if you're quiet enough to listen. It's the sacred rehearsal hall of your soul, the moment when the voice of your ego softens and something deeper begins to whisper. What if your last thought before sleep is your most powerful act of creation? Not your goals, not your vision board, but the exact emotional frequency you carry into the dark. Because that's the moment your subconscious opens like a gate. It doesn't argue. It doesn't doubt. It just receives. So ask yourself, what have you been feeding it? Worry? Regret? Scarcity? If so, that's the emotional blueprint your body rehearses night after night. That's the identity you anchor. That's the signal you broadcast into the field. And you wonder why the outer world never changes. But what if, instead of replaying what went wrong, you began to feel what could go right? What if you stopped repeating the old script and started remembering the new one, the one where you are already prosperous, already healed, already chosen by the version of life that fits your soul like a glove? Not imagination, memory. You're not begging the universe. You're attuning to a reality that already exists. Neville Goddard didn't speak in metaphors, he gave instructions. How would you feel were your wish already fulfilled? That is the question, that is the key. And he insisted, the door opens just before sleep, because that's when thought and biology align. That's when your brain enters theta, the bridge between what is and what could be, a window of neuroplasticity, a quantum threshold where timelines shift, not through force, but frequency. And Gregg Braden calls this the divine matrix, a field that mirrors not your words, but your coherence. The alignment of thought, feeling, and being. So tonight, don't just lay your head on a pillow. Lay your past to rest. Fall asleep inside the feeling of already becoming. Let your chest rise with the breath of a new identity. Let your body feel what your mind hasn't dared to believe. Let your system rehearse the vibration of completion, not longing, because if you can feel it, you are already living it, and your subconscious will follow, not someday. Tonight, because your future self is already moving, already speaking, already remembering you, and in the space between dreams and waking you meet. That's not poetry, that's design. So tonight, don't fall asleep with questions. Fall asleep as the answer. Fall asleep as the one who already arrived. Let that be your ritual. Let that be your manifestation. Let that be the beginning of everything. Every version of you already exists somewhere, right now. In this very moment, beyond what your eyes can see and what your mind dares to imagine, there is a version of you already living the life you long for, a life filled with meaning, purpose, prosperity, emotional freedom, and deep spiritual alignment. That version is not a fantasy. It's a real, measurable, vibrational pattern, already encoded within what physicists like David Bohm and Garnier Malet called the implicate order, and what Gregg Braden names the divine matrix. This version of you, this life you crave, isn't something you need to invent. It's something you need to tune into. The multiverse, long treated as abstract speculation, is now being embraced not just by mystics, but by scientists who explore the fringes of quantum mechanics and consciousness. It's a vast library of timelines, each one already playing out in full detail. And in each of these timelines, there is a you living a different destiny. There's the you who surrendered to fear. The you who repeated the wounds of the past. But there is also the you who healed, who chose, who prospered, who broke generational chains and built something new from the ashes. This isn't a metaphor, it's a mechanism. A cosmic architecture that doesn't ask for your understanding, it waits for your alignment. Because the truth is this, you don't create your ideal life from scratch, you select it. Your reality, what feels solid, what feels personal, what feels yours, is just the one you've been tuned into most consistently. Like a radio, your consciousness is always vibrating at a frequency, and that frequency determines the channel of experience you're currently living. That's why some people, living in the same city, with the same resources, born to the same family, can lead lives that are polar opposites. The difference isn't the external world. The difference is which signal they've committed to transmitting. Most people are unconscious of their tuning. They repeat the frequency of their childhood, their trauma, their scarcity, their inherited belief systems, not because they want to, but because they've never been taught that they can retune. But you are not most people. If you're watching this, it's because a part of you already knows there's more than one version of your life. And it's time to choose the one you were born to live. Choosing your life begins not with willpower, but with awareness. You must first become conscious of the script you've been unconsciously playing. What stories do you still believe about yourself, about your worth, about what's possible? Because those stories aren't just beliefs, they're broadcast signals, and those signals attract timelines that match. If you believe life is a constant struggle, you'll tune into versions of reality where struggle dominates every chapter. If you believe you are always abandoned, always overlooked, always behind, the quantum field will oblige, not to punish you, but to reflect your signal back to you. But if you begin, even subtly, to shift that broadcast, if you begin to say, I am now tuning into the life where I am seen, chosen, thriving, and prosperous, the field starts adjusting, and more importantly, you start adjusting. You begin to speak differently, walk differently, interpret events differently. You stop seeing obstacles as evidence of failure and start seeing them as confirmation that you're climbing into a higher frequency. This is not delusion, it's quantum decision. To the conscious mind, it may feel like imagination, but to the field, it's instruction. You are not here to create out of nothing. You are here to select what's already waiting. You are not here to become someone else. You are here to remember who you already are. In the timeline where your heart is at peace, your body is healthy, and your path feels guided, not forced. That version of you isn't in the future. It's in a parallel now, already alive in the multiverse. What we call manifestation is simply the process of collapsing possibility into experience. The observer effect in quantum physics tells us that particles behave differently when observed. Your attention, your expectation, your emotion, these are the tools of a creator, whether you use them consciously or not. So ask yourself now, which life are you broadcasting? Which version of you are you tuning into today? Not in theory, not tomorrow, but right now. Because every version of you already exists somewhere. The only question is, are you ready to meet them? You don't attract prosperity. You broadcast it. And that signal doesn't come from your words, your affirmations, or your vision board alone. It comes from your emotional state, the unspoken frequency your nervous system emits into the field. Most people try to manifest from the surface. They repeat phrases, they visualize wealth, they say, I am abundant. But underneath it all, their dominant emotional state is fear, doubt, lack. And the divine matrix, as Gregg Braden teaches, doesn't respond to words. It responds to coherence, to the felt vibration of what you are being. This is where most teachings on manifestation miss the mark, because they focus on doing, on scripting, on steps. But reality is not built through steps. It is sculpted through state. Your state of being is your signal. And that signal is what calls forth the timeline you're experiencing. Let's make this real. Imagine a person saying, I want to be prosperous, but internally feeling like they're failing, panicking, and stuck. That emotional broadcast is the real instruction to the quantum field. That's the true prayer. The field doesn't distinguish between what you want and what you feel. It only mirrors the vibration you hold most consistently, which is why prosperity isn't something you chase. It's a signal you become. In the divine matrix, everything is connected. There is no distance between you and the life you desire, only difference in vibration. Think of it like tuning forks. If your dominant frequency is fear, you resonate with timelines filled with chaos and limitation. If your dominant frequency is peace, trust, and internal abundance, You harmonize with realities where those experiences manifest externally. The key is not to try harder, it's to become more coherent. Coherence isn't perfection, it's alignment. It's the moment your thoughts, emotions, and body are all saying the same thing. I am safe, I am supported, I am ready. And when this coherence is achieved, even briefly, the field responds fast. That's why a single moment of deep gratitude can do more than a month of forced affirmations. Gratitude is an emotional frequency of already having. It signals to the field, this life is already mine. Science backs this. Joe Dispenza's brain scans of meditators show that elevated emotions like gratitude, love, and joy create coherent heart-brain rhythms, activating the parasympathetic nervous system, reducing cortisol, and triggering genetic expression linked to healing and regeneration. But beyond biology, this coherence is also a cosmic command. It tells the universe, I am ready to live in the reality where this frequency belongs. You're not begging the universe for scraps. You're aligning with the signal that draws your life to you. Imagine it this way. Your mind is the transmitter, your emotion is the current, and the divine matrix is the amplifier. What you send out with clarity, coherence, and consistency returns. Not always instantly, not always in the form you expect, but always in accordance with the signal you hold. That's why changing your life isn't about effort, it's about elevation. You don't have to solve every problem before feeling whole. You don't need to wait until money appears to feel secure. You begin by practicing the emotion of your desired timeline before it's visible. That's how you pre-select the life you want. Most people wait for external conditions to shift before they feel different. But the masters, Neville, Dispenza, Garnier, Braden, they all point to the same paradox. The feeling must come first, because the feeling is the code, the emotion is the language, the signal is the cause. This is not wishful thinking. It's quantum mechanics applied to identity. The reticular activating system in your brain, your RAS, is a filter that aligns your perception with your emotional expectation. If you expect life to be unfair, the RAS filters your attention to notice only evidence of unfairness. But when you begin to feel prosperity, even when circumstances haven't changed yet, your RAS begins highlighting opportunities, relationships, synchronicities that align with abundance. It's not magic. It's neurobiology catching up with your spirit. So let's ask again. What are you broadcasting? Not what you want, not what you say, but what you feel deeply, habitually, biologically, and energetically. Because that's the true signal. And if you want to change your life, you must first change your frequency. Your reality is not reacting to your desires, it's reflecting your identity. Every moment, what you call life is simply mirroring back the emotional blueprint you carry inside. Not the goals you wrote in a journal, not the Pinterest board you created, but the deeper script, often unconscious, running in your nervous system. It's a pattern, a loop, a definition of who you believe you are and what you think you deserve. And it's that definition, your self-concept, that determines the quality of your manifested reality. People say, I want prosperity, but live from a core identity shaped by fear, scarcity, or shame. They affirm abundance in the morning, yet react with panic when the bank app shows a low balance. They visualize success, but still feel like imposters when opportunity knocks. The reason manifestation feels inconsistent for many is not because the universe isn't listening. It's because their identity is broadcasting static. Neville Goddard taught, you don't manifest what you want, you manifest what you are. This is not poetic exaggeration. It's the most precise diagnosis of why manifestation often fails. Because your outer life is always reading the code of your inner life. And that code is structured by your identity. If the identity doesn't match the desire, the manifestation won't hold. Because the emotional root system isn't strong enough to sustain the fruit. This is where neuroscience meets metaphysics. The reticular activating system, RAS, located in your brainstem, is constantly filtering reality to align with your subconscious expectations. It's like an internal Google algorithm. If your internal identity says, I'm always broke, Your RAS highlights evidence to prove it. If your identity shifts to, I am a vessel of prosperity, your RAS begins showing you new opportunities, mentors, insights, and synchronicities that match this definition. Reality bends not to your effort, but to your essence. Now here's the part most people miss. Changing your identity isn't about faking it, it's about remembering the truth that's already within you. It's not about stacking layers of fake confidence. It's about peeling away the inherited scripts, childhood conditioning, cultural narratives, and false conclusions you've carried for decades. Beneath it all, there is a version of you that has always known its worth. That version is not created. It is reclaimed. When you operate from that self, when you live from the frequency of wholeness rather than the frequency of lack, everything in your external life begins to recalibrate. People respond differently. Money flows more naturally. Decisions become intuitive instead of anxious. This is not delusion, it's vibrational alignment. Let's bring this down to earth. Every time you make a decision that reflects your new identity, whether it's choosing to speak up, invest in yourself, walk away from a toxic pattern, or simply breathe deeply instead of panicking, you are signaling to your subconscious, this is who I am now. And over time, repetition turns into embodiment. This creates a feedback loop. The more you act from your prosperous identity, the more reality confirms it. The more confirmation you receive, the more confident you become. And this loop eventually becomes your default, not a manifestation trick, but a manifestation identity. Gregg Braden calls this the mirror of the mind. What you see outside is never separate from what you hold inside. And as you shift your identity, the mirror shifts with you. But the mirror never changes first. You do. This is why prosperity starts from the inside out. It's not a number. It's not a house. It's not a title. It's a state. And states are maintained by stories. The question is, what story are you telling yourself about who you are? If you say, I'm not good with money, or I always mess things up, or I'm not cut out for this, those stories become your identity, and your identity becomes your reality. But if you begin to say, I am expanding into abundance, or I trust myself to hold wealth, or I am worthy of every good thing, you begin to install new neural pathways. You start becoming the version of you who can hold what you once only dreamed of. This is the inner architecture of manifestation. Identity is the foundation. Emotion is the wiring. Belief is the blueprint. And action is the reinforcement. You don't need to beg the universe. You just need to become the one who already belongs to the life you want. And the good news? That version of you already exists. Not as a fantasy, but as a vibrational fact in the multiverse. And the moment you stop reaching outward and start aligning inward, the bridge between where you are and where you're meant to be collapses. Because manifestation is not attraction, it's reflection. Prosperity doesn't arrive when you're ready. It arrives when you're convinced it's already yours. There's a difference between hope and knowing, between wanting and assuming, between craving a new reality and living as if it already unfolded. This is the exact dimension where Neville Goddard placed the key to abundance, and he called it the law of assumption. Not a belief system, not a motivational trick, a law, as absolute as gravity. What you assume to be true hardens into fact, not because you forced the outcome, but because you aligned with the state from which it must emerge. Most people try to manifest prosperity by wanting it very deeply. They visualize, script, pray, repeat affirmations like chants, but internally they are still vibrating at not yet. They say, I am wealthy, but the emotion in their body still screams, I'm not. This mismatch is not invisible. The field registers it. Your subconscious registers it. And therefore reality reflects it. Neville's brilliance was in cutting through the noise of effort. He didn't ask people to work harder, think harder, or even meditate longer. He invited them into a radical inner assumption. Live as though it were true. Not someday, not if, not when the evidence appears, now. And only now. But how do you live from a reality you haven't seen yet? How do you feel wealth when the bills are piling up? How do you assume abundance when your past has been shaped by lack? Here's the truth. Assumption is not pretending. It's accessing the emotional memory of what already exists in a higher timeline. Because in the multiverse model of manifestation, all possibilities are real. The prosperous you already exists. The fulfilled you is already choosing joy. The abundant version of your life is already unfolding in another layer of reality. Assumption is how you collapse that timeline into this one. It begins with emotion, not thought. Emotion is the signature of the timeline. If you can feel the gratitude of wealth now, before the number changes in your account, you signal to the subconscious that it has already arrived, and the subconscious, obedient and unfiltered, begins rewriting your internal scripts to match this new premise. This is not fake it till you make it. This is feel it till it's familiar. Neville would say, feeling is the secret. Because emotion is not a byproduct of change, it is the initiator of it. If you wait for evidence to feel abundant, you're stuck in delay. But if you feel abundant first, evidence begins to gather around you like magnetized iron to a hidden field. This is emotional rehearsal, not wishful thinking. Just as athletes rehearse movements in their mind before a game, you rehearse emotional states that signal the identity of your desired self. You become intimate with the feeling of success, joy, peace, prosperity, until those feelings become your baseline, your familiar, your new home frequency. Let's take this deeper. When you sit in meditation or stillness and drop into the version of you who already lives in ease, who breathes without fear, who trusts their power, who gives generously because lack is no longer a language, that emotional download begins to shift your entire electromagnetic field. Your heart opens, your brain starts rewiring, hormones adjust, cells respond, and your reticular activating system, once trained to scan for scarcity, now begins highlighting new doors, relationships, and insights that match the state you're carrying. It's a complete inversion of the old paradigm. Instead of chasing, you become. Instead of reaching, you rest. Instead of proving, you assume. But this isn't passive. It's the most intentional act of manifestation, the discipline of emotional alignment. You're not just manifesting outcomes. You're rehearsing the emotional life of your future self, so that when the door opens, you're not just ready, you're already living there. And that changes everything. Because when you live as if, you collapse the gap. The subconscious can't distinguish between real and vividly imagined emotional states, so it treats the assumption as reality. And then reality must bend to match it. That's why your job is not to figure out how it will come, but to assume it already has. You begin to carry prosperity not as a goal, but as your nature. You start to move as one who is already whole. And from that wholeness, all things are added unto you. This is the axis of quantum and mystic, of Goddard and modern neuroscience. The field doesn't respond to your hopes, it responds to your coherence, and coherence is born through assumption. So the next time you feel the lack whispering its old story, pause, breathe, and assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Because prosperity isn't waiting for you to find it. It's waiting for you to remember that you are the one who called it in long ago. Imagination is not a dream. It is a doorway, and through it, you meet the version of you already living in prosperity. Most people misunderstand imagination. They think it's escape, they think it's fiction, they think it's what children do when they're not paying attention to the real world. But what if the real world is just one of many, and imagination is how you visit the others? Neville Goddard was clear about this. Imagination is not fantasy. Imagination is God in action. It is the sacred faculty by which you access parallel realities, not in theory but in practice. When you imagine vividly, emotionally, and consistently, you are not simply entertaining thoughts. You are stepping into a vibrational channel where that version of you is already breathing. In the multiverse, every possible outcome already exists. Every decision made and unmade unfolds into a new branch of reality, and you, right now, are tuned into one particular frequency based on your beliefs, assumptions, emotions, and self-image. That's all. So if you want a different reality, you don't have to fight the current one. You don't have to earn it. You simply change the channel. And imagination is the remote control, but this requires presence, deep, sacred, emotional presence. You must feel the scene, not watch it. You must become it, not narrate it. This is not about scripting words in a notebook. This is about entering the theater of your inner world and rehearsing the truth of who you choose to be until that truth moves into your nervous system. It's no longer enough to think, I want abundance. You must see your hands counting the money, feel the peace in your chest as the bills are paid with ease. Taste the food on your plate, gifted by a life of flow. Hear your own voice saying thank you, not as a plea but as a knowing. This emotional saturation is what turns imagination from daydream into data. The subconscious is not logical, it is sensory. And when you rehearse these inner realities as if they were memories, your body starts to believe them. Your RS begins to scan for evidence. Your electromagnetic field begins broadcasting the signal. And the field, the multiverse, responds. Here's the secret most people miss. You don't visualize to make something happen. You visualize to remember it already did. You're not trying to force the future. You're reuniting with it. Neville's technique of living in the end is this in practice. You create a scene that implies the wish fulfilled, not the process, not the struggle, just the result. The phone call saying yes, the key in the door of your new home, the arms of someone who sees your light. You dwell in that moment. You taste it, and then you release it. Because imagination is a ritual, not a negotiation. You don't imagine to convince the universe. You imagine to tune yourself. And the more often you enter that state, the more stable your frequency becomes. The less doubt survives, the less contradiction clings to your energy, and the more your physical reality begins bending, softly, sometimes invisibly at first, toward that assumption made flesh. Imagination, then, is not just a portal. It is a training ground. It teaches your nervous system how it feels to prosper. It teaches your inner child that safety is possible. It teaches your subconscious that lack is no longer relevant. And these lessons do not fade. They build momentum. In this new way of living, you don't hope for signs. You become the sign. You don't chase synchronicities. You become a match to the field where they already exist. You walk through life like one who has returned from the future, because you have. All of this begins in the sacred, silent spaces of your inner world, not with effort, not with repetition, with reverence, with artistry, with breath. Because to imagine is to remember your original design. To imagine is to align with the source that dreamed you into being. To imagine is to say, I trust what I can't yet see because I've already felt it, and therefore, it must be. You're not here to fix your lack. You're here to remember your prosperity. It may sound like a contradiction, but it's the foundation of all quantum manifestation. You cannot attract what you believe you are separate from. The moment you chase abundance, you affirm that you do not possess it. The moment you seek healing, you reinforce the belief that you are broken. And yet there is a deeper truth humming beneath those impulses, a truth that you've simply forgotten. You were never born with scarcity in your soul. Scarcity is a learned lens, a story passed down, a survival instinct written into your nervous system from moments when the world felt unsafe. But what if those stories weren't yours to begin with? What if your mind was trained to survive someone else's wounds, and your job now is to unlearn? This is the moment you realize that manifestation isn't just about getting what you want. It's about reclaiming what was always yours, beyond the veil of conditioning. You're not creating a new life from scratch. You're remembering the version of you who already lives it. Think of prosperity not as a destination, but as a frequency, a memory in the quantum field that has been waiting for you to come home. This is what Garnier Malet called the time-doubled self, a future version of you that already exists, already healed, already received. And that version is not just a theory. It is a vibrational twin, living in a folded dimension of time, whispering back to you every night. Every time you dream of a better life, every time you feel a wave of inspiration that seems to come from nowhere, you are in communication with that self. And when you honor those whispers, you collapse the distance. When you doubt them, you delay the reunion. So how do you close the gap? You begin by withdrawing your loyalty from the identity of lack. That voice that says, "I've never had enough. It's too late. I always struggle. I'm not worthy." Those are not truths. They are inherited echoes, repetitions of old programming spoken by people who themselves were hurting. You do not need to carry those frequencies anymore. You do not need to make them part of your personality. You are allowed to leave them behind. But leaving them doesn't mean fighting them. It means seeing them with compassion and choosing again. Choosing to believe that maybe, just maybe, your natural state is wholeness. Maybe the reason lack hurts so much is because it's not your true home. This is not bypassing. This is remembering. Prosperity begins in that gentle shift, that subtle, sacred redefinition of who you think you are. It's in the moment you wake up and say, "Today, I choose to be the one who already has." Not to pretend, not to perform, but to align. You begin to notice your thoughts as energetic signatures, not facts. You notice your emotions as messengers, not enemies. You notice your triggers as portals, not punishments. And in each moment, you begin to respond from the self who is already whole. This is how identity becomes magnetism. This is how you stop attracting lack and start radiating prosperity. You're not begging the universe, you're informing it. You're not asking for permission. You're returning to your original frequency. And that shift doesn't need to be dramatic. It begins in the softest decisions, drinking your tea with gratitude, walking into a room with your shoulders open, answering your emails with the energy of, "I am already abundant." It begins in the micro movements of your day, layered with awareness. And yes, sometimes the old voices will return. Scarcity has muscle memory, but every time you choose to remember who you really are, you loosen its grip. You rewire the loop. You become safer in your own prosperity, and soon the echoes fade. Because in this multiverse, the version of you who lives in fullness is not a fantasy. They are real. They are waiting, and they are calling. Your job is not to heal all the wounds at once. Your job is to tune your inner ear, to feel the subtle knowing that you are not behind. You are not broken. You are not late. You are simply awakening from the dream of deficiency. And prosperity is how you remember who you've always been. Your prosperous self already exists and is closer than you think. Not in a metaphorical way, not as a distant dream or abstract hope, but in a real scientifically supported possibility within the quantum structure of time itself. According to Jean-Pierre Garnier Malet's theory of time doubling, every moment you live is split into two timelines, one that unfolds consciously in the physical world and one that runs ahead, faster, in a subtler, invisible dimension. This faster version, your quantum double, is already exploring the possibilities you haven't yet lived. And one of those possibilities is the life of prosperity you're seeking. This double is not bound by the slowness of matter. It's not weighed down by the fears or beliefs you carry in the present moment. It exists as a purer version of your consciousness, free from hesitation, already in alignment with the life you desire. And each night, as you surrender into sleep, you have the opportunity to receive its guidance, not through effort, but through frequency matching. This is not science fiction. It is spiritual physics. And once you understand it, you begin to realize your role is not to invent prosperity from scratch, but to collapse into alignment with the version of you who already lives it. To do that, you must step out of the trance of waiting for proof, waiting for validation, waiting for permission. Waiting has a frequency, and that frequency does not match the self who already has. So the question becomes, how do you collapse the timeline? How do you shift your identity so deeply that you begin to occupy the prosperous version of your life right now? First, by realizing that your identity is the bridge. You don't leap from this timeline to another by pushing harder. You do it by becoming the self who already lives there. You think like them. You speak like them. You feel what they feel. You embody the prosperity you once thought was outside of you. And as you do, you tune your frequency into the thread of reality where that prosperity already exists. Then the field responds, not because you forced it, but because you became it. This is not instant gratification. This is quantum maturity. It's understanding that time is not a straight line but a spiral, and your consciousness is what determines the loop you walk. Most people are circling the same loop of survival, of doubt, of self-sabotage, because they don't know how to interrupt the pattern. But when you step into your double's shoes, even just for moments at a time, you begin creating new gravity, a new orbit, a new fate. This shift happens subtly, not in fireworks or dramatic events, but in the inner decision to inhabit a different state. The prosperous self doesn't stress over timing. They trust it. They don't rehearse lack. They live gratitude. They don't resist change. They guide it. And with every small act of presence, you begin to feel them not as a future you aspire to, but as a frequency you already are. The idea of timeline hopping can sound fantastical, but at its core, it's a return to the path that was always waiting for you to step back into coherence. Prosperity isn't something you manifest by fighting your current reality. It's something you activate by remembering your eternal self. The self that has always been whole, always been guided, always been abundant. So instead of striving to become, start asking to remember. Ask your double, show me how you feel, show me what you know, show me how you live. Then listen, not with your ears, but with your state. Feel what shifts, follow what expands, trust what softens. This is the sacred communication that rewrites everything, not with pressure, but with presence. Because the moment you remember that the prosperous version of you already exists, your search becomes a reunion, and you are not far. You never were. Night isn't the end of your day. It's the beginning of your reprogramming. The world goes quiet. Your breath slows. The boundaries between conscious and subconscious dissolve. And in this sacred moment, just before you surrender to sleep, your mind becomes the most fertile soil for creation. This is where ancient mystics and modern scientists align. The transition between wakefulness and sleep is a neurological doorway into the field of infinite potential. Neville Goddard called this state the bridge. Jean-Pierre Garnier Malet described it as the point of contact with your quantum double. Neuroscience defines it as the theta state, a slowed-down brainwave frequency where the subconscious is wide open. And it is here, in this liminal space, that you are closest to the version of yourself who already lives in prosperity. Not imagining it, not wishing for it, living it. When you fall asleep in a state of fear, the subconscious records that fear as truth. It rehearses it, it amplifies it, it mirrors it back into your life as people, circumstances, limitations. But when you fall asleep in a state of assumption, that you are already abundant, already healed, already chosen, then your subconscious begins to obey a new reality. Not because you forced it, but because it trusts your emotional signature more than your spoken words. Words are surface level. Feeling is foundational. This is why Neville insisted, do not go to sleep without assuming the state of the wish fulfilled. That moment, when your conscious defenses soften, is when the deeper mind accepts instructions, and what you feed it will echo through your field like a signal, tuning your reality to match your identity. So here's what you do. Before you close your eyes tonight, pause, breathe, detach from everything that didn't go right today. Detach from the stories, the failures, the delays. None of them matter now. In this moment, you're not trying to fix the old version of you. You're aligning with the one who already remembers. Feel what it's like to live in the home you desire. Feel the warmth of gratitude, not because something finally happened, but because you remembered you were always worthy of it. Feel the peace of knowing the door is already open and you are already inside. Let your body relax as if you are safe, loved, and provided for, because you are. And this feeling is the magnet. This feeling is the frequency. This feeling is the true affirmation. You don't need to repeat 1,000 phrases to convince the universe. You only need to embody the one emotion that proves you've already arrived. And if your mind wanders to fear, gently return to the feeling. If doubt creeps in, don't fight it. Just breathe deeper into the state you've chosen. Because every night is a rehearsal. Every night is a portal. Every night is a chance to align with the self who already exists beyond struggle. This is the secret that most people overlook. Manifestation is not a daytime practice. It's a nighttime technology. While the world sleeps, your inner being is writing the blueprint for the life you'll walk into tomorrow. And if you don't program it with intention, it will default to the old script. So tonight, become the author. Say in silence, I am abundant. I am already living in harmony. I am whole. Don't say it to convince yourself. Say it because it's already true. The subconscious doesn't need evidence. It only needs direction. And as you sink into sleep with this truth wrapped around you, something begins to shift. Not in the future, but now. Your cells begin to calibrate to a new expectation. Your nervous system begins to release its grip on lack. Your field begins to emit a new signal, and the quantum mirror responds. Because sleep is not escape, it's initiation. And tonight, you're not falling asleep as the version who is trying. You're falling asleep as the one who already became. Manifestation was never about what you want. It's always been about what you believe you already are. When you understand this, something fundamental shifts, not just in your mindset, but in your entire energetic field. Because desire without identity is friction, it's resistance. It's a declaration to the universe that you are separate from what you seek. And this separation keeps prosperity at arm's length, no matter how many affirmations you repeat or vision boards you create. The subconscious mind does not respond to your dreams. It responds to your definitions. If deep inside you still define yourself as someone who lacks, someone who's trying, someone who is on their way but not there yet, then that's the identity you'll continue to manifest from, again and again. That's why even when opportunities appear, you'll find a way to sabotage them. That's why even after doing the work, you feel like you're still starting over. But what happens when you shift your definition? What happens when you stop seeing prosperity as a destination and start seeing it as your point of origin? Neville Goddard said, "You must dare to assume you are already what you want to be and remain faithful to that assumption." He wasn't speaking metaphorically. He was speaking neurologically, emotionally, quantumly, because identity is the frequency that programs your reticular activating system, your RAS. It determines what you notice, what you attract, what feels safe, and what feels impossible. And here's the truth. The brain will always fight to prove your identity right. If you see yourself as poor, abundance feels like a threat. If you see yourself as unlucky, opportunities feel like illusions. If you see yourself as undeserving, you'll deflect every blessing with the story that it's not the right time. But when you root yourself in the identity of someone who is already prosperous, not someone who hopes to be, but someone who is, everything changes. Your RAS begins filtering life through a new lens. Your nervous system stops bracing for collapse. Your quantum field begins attracting experiences that confirm your inner belief. And this is not fantasy. It's how you're already functioning. You're already manifesting your identity. The only question is whether that identity was chosen consciously or inherited by default. So choose. Start small. Start with one thought that reflects your new identity. Not to override your pain, but to rewire your foundation. Instead of "I'm trying to manifest prosperity," shift to "I am prosperity in motion." Instead of "I'm healing my lack," shift to "I remember my wholeness." These may seem like subtle changes, but in the subconscious, subtle is seismic, because the subconscious doesn't operate on logic. It operates on repetition, on emotion, on coherence between your thoughts, feelings, and actions. And the moment your inner language aligns with the identity you desire, manifestation stops being effort. It becomes inevitability. You don't have to fight for what already belongs to you. And if it feels like a lie at first, that's okay. You're not faking, you're practicing. You're rehearsing a truth that's more real than the illusion you've lived under. You're reconnecting to the version of yourself who never questioned their worth, never begged for abundance, never chased love like it was something external. You're becoming what you were designed to remember. Identity is not static, it's programmable. And every time you choose a thought, a feeling, a behavior that aligns with your prosperous self, you anchor that program deeper into your field. You train your nervous system to trust abundance. You teach your energy to stop contracting in fear. You rewrite the story your subconscious is projecting into the quantum screen. This is not about pretending, it's about becoming. And the more often you embody the version of you who is already living the life you desire, the faster reality reflects that back. Not because you forced the timeline to shift, but because you finally stopped arguing with it. You surrendered the old script. You chose a new signal. And now life is catching up. There is no such thing as a delay in the quantum field, only a delay in your nervous system's ability to trust what it can't yet see. This is where most give up. Not because their manifestation failed, but because their patience collapsed. Because the 3D world didn't immediately echo the internal change they just began to embody. So they revert. They doubt. They abandon the signal just as it was stabilizing. But manifestation was never about immediate confirmation. It was about consistent transmission. When you begin embodying the identity of your prosperous self, the field receives that signal. But the 3D world, slow, dense, often distorted by collective timelines, takes time to catch up. This is not a flaw. It's a filter, a buffer of mercy, one that gives your system the time it needs to calibrate to the new frequency before you're flooded with outcomes you're not prepared to hold. Think of it like tuning a radio. When you switch stations, static may come first. That doesn't mean the signal isn't there. It means the dial is in motion. The static is the space between frequencies, between worlds. And your job is not to panic in the static. Your job is to keep turning the dial with conviction. So when the bills are due, but the wealth hasn't arrived, hold the signal. When your body still hurts, but you've chosen the identity of healing, hold the signal. When the relationship ends, but your new self knows love isn't lost, it's being refined, hold the signal. Because this is where timelines split. This is where those who try fall away, and those who choose stay the course. Not because they have proof, but because they have faith. Not blind belief, but embodied certainty. A knowing that reality is not reacting to your current results, it's responding to your persistent identity. And this is the greatest test of all. Can you stay loyal to the unseen? Can you trust the root before the sprout breaks the surface? Because the soil doesn't lie. It's already shifting, already stirring, already rerouting the quantum scaffolding around your life. But the surface takes time, and the moment you dig up the seed to check its progress, you reset the process. So stay rooted. Talk to your future like it's already here. Respond to life like the version of you who already made it. Speak prosperity even when the echo hasn't returned, because what you speak now is what echoes later. And remember, the 3D world is not evidence. It's a lagging indicator. Just like your reflection in the mirror can't smile before you do, your life can't reflect prosperity before you become it. So if you stare at the mirror waiting for it to change first, you'll wait forever. But the moment you shift, the mirror follows. This is where Neville's wisdom burns brightest. Be still and know. Not be frantic and hope, not be anxious and wish. Be still, know, declare the end from the beginning, and hold your frequency as if it were law, because it is. The law of assumption is not about acting. It's about assuming your rightful place within the structure of infinite realities. And in that assumption, the 3D world must rearrange itself, not because you demanded it, but because you no longer needed it to. You became the evidence. You turned yourself into the anchor. And the universe always rushes to fill a vacuum of certainty. So when results seem absent, don't ask, where is it? Ask, who am I being? When outcomes delay, don't spiral into doubt. Soften into trust. You are not waiting for your life to change. Your life is waiting for you to stop shifting frequencies, to stop questioning the timeline you already claimed, to stop betraying your future self by rehearsing the identity you swore you left behind. Hold the frequency. Breathe into the static. Stand as the one who already arrived, because in the quantum field you did. You are not manifesting prosperity in the future, you're manifesting it in your consistency. And every moment you choose the higher signal, especially when there's no evidence, is a moment of collapse for the old script. Every moment you remain calm in the unseen, you reaffirm the contract with your future self. Not a contract built on hope, but on resonance. The delay is not punishment. It's proof that your old timeline is dying, and your new one is being born in silence. You are not chasing prosperity. You are the portal it walks through. All this time, you thought you were trying to create something, to build it, to attract it. But manifestation was never about pulling something toward you. It was about realizing that you're the opening, the sacred passage through which abundance enters this world. Not as an external prize, but as a natural expression of who you've become. The most powerful manifestations don't come from effort. They come from alignment. And alignment begins when you no longer ask, "How do I make this happen?" but rather, "What am I allowing through me today?" When you wake up and breathe like someone already free, when you make choices as if your prosperity is inevitable, when your posture, tone, silence, and generosity reflect a soul that already knows it is supported, then you've become the portal, the doorway between the invisible and the visible, the meeting point between source and substance, the living evidence of a timeline already selected. But becoming the portal isn't passive. It's active surrender. It's fierce devotion. It's choosing over and over again to drop the stories, excuses, traumas, and inherited programs that told you abundance was separate from who you are, because it never was. Prosperity has never been waiting on your bank account. It's been waiting on your coherence. Your body is the broadcast tower. Your nervous system is the conduit. Your imagination is the mold, and your gratitude is the magnet that holds the form until it crystallizes into matter. This is why it's not enough to visualize a new life. You must feel it, not longingly, but faithfully, not from a place of someday, but now. Neville called it the Trinity of manifestation: imagination, belief, gratitude. Imagination gives you the blueprint. Belief activates the signal. Gratitude seals the frequency, and together they collapse time. So when you sit in stillness, imagining the life you were born to live, you are not fantasizing. You are communing with your higher blueprint. You are reading from the script of a timeline that already exists in the quantum field. And every time you return to it, rehearse it, inhabit it, you breathe more life into it. Eventually, it breathes back. But here's the truth many miss. You can't become the portal if you're still blocking the passage with your fear. Every thought of "I'm not ready" narrows the opening. Every feeling of unworthiness shuts the gate. Every comparison with others builds walls around your blessings. And every time you rehearse scarcity, you collapse the energy that was trying to come through you. To become the portal, you must live as if you are already enough. Because you are. You don't have to prove your worth. You don't have to master perfection. You don't have to wait until the conditions are ideal. You simply have to be willing to hold the frequency longer than the doubt, to honor your desire more than your distractions, to trust that the feeling of resonance is the compass toward your next manifestation, and that every time you feel aligned, even without results, you're closer than ever. Think of your life like a vessel. The more you clear it, the more light it carries. The more you trust it, the more current flows through. The more you honor it, the more sacred it becomes. You are the chalice, the channel, the doorway, the womb of creation. And when you live like that, every thought becomes a spell, every gesture a prayer, every silence a transmission. This is the sacred art of being the portal. And when you master it, you stop obsessing over the outcome. You stop measuring your progress by what shows up outside. Because now you know, the outside is always behind. But your energy, your presence, that's real time. And in real time, you are prosperity embodied. Let yourself walk like it, speak like it, breathe like it. Be the one who carries the field, not the one who chases it. Because manifestation isn't something you do. It's who you are when the static clears. The version of you that is not desperate, but devoted. Not seeking, but surrendered. Not loud, but luminous. You are not the beggar at the door. You are the door. And all that is meant for you is already arriving, not because you chased it, but because you became the path of least resistance. The portal opened, and life, finally, remembered how to reach you. Prosperity is not something you seek. It's a version of you calling you home. It's easy to believe that manifestation is about attracting something you don't yet have, that it's about sending out signals, making vision boards, repeating affirmations, and waiting. But the truth is far simpler and far more profound. Manifestation is not a reaching, it's a returning. The version of you who already lives in prosperity is not far away. It's not hiding behind years of effort or locked in some distant reality you must earn access to. That version has always been here, subtly whispering through your longings, your dreams, your glimpses of joy, your sudden moments of peace. It has always been inviting you to come back, to choose it, to feel it, to anchor it. This is the final activation, and it's not dramatic, it's quiet, intentional, deeply sovereign. To choose the abundant timeline is not to fight for it. It is to become quiet enough to hear it calling. It is to close your eyes and feel it inside your chest. To sense the rhythm of your breath when you stop running from yourself, when you remember that you are not behind, that your life is not late, that this moment is enough, that your frequency is home. The future doesn't begin out there, it begins now. In this stillness, in this remembrance, you do not need to earn your way into the life you want. You only need to become still enough to receive it. Your identity is the anchor, your nervous system is the landing pad, your attention is the steering wheel, and your emotions are the code that unlocks the vault. So what happens when you stop waiting for signs and start becoming the sign? What happens when you wake up and decide, without proof, without confirmation, without applause, that today you are abundance, that today you are whole, that today you trust your own resonance more than the noise of the world? That is the moment you collapse the wave. That is the moment the quantum field responds, not to your effort but to your coherence. You are not asking for it anymore. You are becoming it. Let the memory of your most prosperous self flood you. Let your cells remember what it feels like to be supported by life, guided by peace, fueled by creativity. Let your imagination carve out the feeling of already being in that timeline, not as fiction, but as fact in progress. And once you feel it, breathe into it. Once you breathe it, move from it. Once you move from it, watch as reality begins to shape itself around your alignment. You don't have to know how it comes. You only need to know who you are when it does. Anchor yourself in that, not for 5 minutes, but as a daily act of devotion. Because your reality is shaped not by the intensity of your desire, but by the consistency of your frequency. You don't manifest what you want once. You manifest what you are every day. So anchor it. Anchor it in your breath. Anchor it in your posture. Anchor it in the way you speak to yourself when no one is watching. Anchor it in how you walk into a room. Anchor it in the way you treat money, time, and love. Not with fear, but with reverence. Let this be your new baseline. Let this be the self you return to again and again, until returning is no longer necessary. Until it's simply who you are. You have nothing left to chase. There is no greater secret, no missing key, only this choice, this frequency, this self. Choose it, feel it, anchor it. And when the doubts come, when the 3D gets loud, when the evidence hasn't arrived, return here. Return to this self. Not to fix, not to beg, not to correct, but to remember, because you were never waiting for your life to begin. Your life was waiting for you to remember you were the one creating it. Now go live like it. You are the portal, and it's open.